It's Wednesday today.
Yep.
That's when we do the podcast. There's no sun out today. We didn't play any music.
So it's dead in here?
It's
Won't be dead for long.
I know. I have some to start with, unless
Go.
you do.
You go first.
Is yours short? Because mine's going to be long.
What's it about?
A little bit about the skill session last night.
Okay.
And I have a question to ask you, but it's
Okay,
going to
so
open up a whole
I'll
can
go
of...
first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you and I were talking to the kids the other night. I've talked about it before, and then there's going to be some parents that say, you got to let people be who they are, blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is we're joking around about how bad kids' hair is now. What are you laughing at?
It's true and hilarious.
Yeah, it's like we're stuck in the 80s.
Bad haircuts.
Trying out for Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
Anyways, they got the bad flow. So we're teasing the kids about all their hair and stuff, and they're defending it and all that stuff. And now we're like, I'm the old guy. Remember I was walking out the other night and someone goes, "Is that your dad, Eric?"
Yeah, they asked
I'm
me
like,
if you're my dad.
Shit, man, I feel like I'm. I know, like.
Oh man.
Felt shame.
Yeah.
Anyways, the kids are talking, and you feel old and stuff. But so I put a serious tone to it for a second. I said, "Okay, here's a question for you though, because they're defending their hair, right?"
Yeah.
I said, "Here's the question for you. The question is this: if you're really, really serious about hockey, and if it was, let's say, a time in your life where you could be scouted. So in if it's an OHL Canadian Hockey League, that dude, you're looking at around 15 years old. And if you're going into college or NHL draft, you're going somewhere 18 to 20 years old, anywhere. Anyways, You got someone looking at you. I said, so if you were serious and if you wanted this to happen, and if a scout happened to look at you, which they would, what would be the first impression? And your hair means nothing about your personality necessarily. It means nothing. And the way you dress, like, so you combine that with your dress code and all that kind of stuff. That first impression could leave the impression that you're a follower or you don't care or whatever. And it really, really is nitpicky.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It really is. But there are old school dudes that look at things a little bit different than your average guy, and says, okay, that guy, it might be a question. That's all I'm saying.
For sure.
So I was just challenging them on that. And I said, like, for the next year or two, and they said, like, it really doesn't matter to me. And it may not matter to 99% of the scouts, coaches, GMs, whatever, but to have a cleaned up look where you're not fitting in just in normal society, that's not a fair statement. Like, just to clean it up to look like you're a professional.
Yeah.
And if you wear a tracksuit, wear it right. If you wear a suit, wear it right. You don't have to be the clown with the funny bow tie or all that kind of stuff. Like, if you just look the part for a while, you remove all doubt. You at least, or maybe you don't remove doubt, but you present yourself as a kid like, okay, that kid's got it together. Absolutely. And that's all I'm saying about that.
For sure. And I agree. It is a nitpicky thing, but even for me, like, maybe call me old school, but I don't think I'm that old school. When kids walk into the gym, I do the exact same thing. Doesn't matter who it is, and everybody does it. Like, it doesn't matter if you say you don't. You look at the person walking into you, and you have a snapshot thought about what this person is about. And if you just take out the questions by having just a simple put together look, you're just taking out the uncertainty. That's all you're doing. It's like you have your hair looks cleaned up, you're wearing decent clothes, and you look like you give a rip about life. It just takes out the question mark. Whereas, like, if you have some stupid dye in your hair, or you paint your nails, or you wear weird baggy clothes, or everything's brand name and it's real flashy, it's just, you just give off the impression that you either think you're better than you are, you have some kind of arrogance to you, you don't care what people think, you're going to be a handful to deal with. Like, those are
or you never thought about it.
Yeah, or you never even thought. Yeah, you don't care. You don't care enough to present yourself, right? And that's just what people do. And it is nitpicky because you obviously, that, like you said, your hair and what you wear doesn't really indicate what your personality is necessarily. But the way that what I said to them when we were finished talking, I was like, it doesn't hurt to clean it up, and it might help you, you know? And if maybe it'll do nothing. Maybe if you just keep doing what you're doing and you have the same stupid hair and you dress bad and all that, and it won't matter, but it might help if you do that. And if it might, then It's a hard
Yeah.
game, man. You want everything going your way,
Yeah,
you know?
but what the kids have to realize, and I'm saying kids being 14, 15, 16,
Mhm.
like for the junior levels, and then I'm talking junior players to get scouted for college,
Mhm.
or junior college players getting scouted for pro.
Mhm.
Like, I know this is, for some people it's a hard concept. Like, but here's the qualifier: if you feel like this is important to you to move on to the next
Right.
level. If, like, for a lot of people, it's like, I'm not going anywhere, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
totally
cool.
cool.
Yep.
But if you're looking at hockey as, and we'll call it a job interview, because that's exactly what you're doing. If you play in the CHL, you're even though people say, well, that's not a job, it's like, okay, but if it's worth 4 years of all school books, tuition, and X amount of
It's
money
a
paid
job,
for,
man. Yeah.
that's worth a haircut.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to get a cut, but I'm just saying that's worth a thought.
Yep.
And from that level up, college and up, it's a job interview every single day. It actually amazes me to look at when I see, well, I'm going to take it to another level now. When I see guys like in junior that are not drafted yet, that want to be, and they look like
Oh, yeah.
they're the drummer on the Turtles or the Muppets.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that, or they
Or,
look like they're the head of the mafia,
well, that was the
right?
next thing, is they go in the pregame like dressed up, and they're wearing the bling. Like, I know Austin Matthew does, and some of the pro guys do, but they're already making their 11 million and 10 million, 8 million,
Yeah.
5
Do
million,
what you
4 million.
want when you're there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, and that at that point the
Yeah.
game changes a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You're because now you're there, but trying to get there, it's like you want to make everything that you possibly can line up to make you an interesting person, and as many things as you can get rid of that may deter someone from talking to you or judging you in a negative light.
Yep.
So that's just a thought.
Yep.
And maybe my thought means absolutely nothing, but the reason I feel like I can say this, even though there would be a lot of people say, well, they're just kids, let them be kids, and I understand that. But the thing is that the qualifiers, if this is something that you're serious about, if you want to treat this as a obsession and a profession and ultimate pursuit, then that is something that I think is very important.
Mhm.
And it's not even a sacrifice. It's just because you can still wear track pants in public. You have to, and you can still look good wearing certain things. You can still be styling. But it's just taking it to the next level. Is because what happens is you question, like when I see the kids going into the pregame, like in the OHL, they do this a lot because they do that in the NHL where they do the social media marketing. So kids walk in with sunglasses and hats, and
checker
they're like
pants
done
and all
right
this
up, and
stuff. Yeah.
chains and stuff like that, and it's fine for you. But for me, I look at it and I go, okay, so do you want to play hockey, or do you want to make sure you're on Instagram or Snap, whatever the snaps
Yeah.
are?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's all it is. I'm 53 man and a half.
No, but I agree though,
Yeah.
and I'm half your age. I agree because it's like it just looks like you're prone to distraction, or you don't care, or you are
Or this is more
arrogant,
important.
or yeah, right. It's like you get caught up in all the shit, and it's unnecessary. But it's hard. It's easy to say, and it's hard to listen to. But we've been through it. It's hard to listen to guys like you and I, but we've been through it.
Yeah.
And when we look back at it, I remember being in there, and you want to be styling, you want to be wearing the stuff that people wear, because it has very little to do with hockey. It's just you just want to be in style, like you just want to look like you look good and wear good clothes and whatever. But how you're and it doesn't mean you can't do that, but there's just a way to do it and a way to not do it, right? Where you can get yourself into issues in what people think of you for no reason. Like you could just eliminate that.
Yeah.
It's very easy to. So
and one more thing on top of that. So this is, but I guess it's more like a distraction, or isn't it? Just it's my mind, anyways, right? So I look at a lot of kids when they score goals, what their celly looks like, right? And so it was funny a week ago, the session you took over for me last night. One of the boys said, "How did you celly?" And I said, "How did I celly? When I scored, I lift up my arms and I was happy."
Yeah.
But it wasn't a big deal. Just open my arm, I lift up my arms, and
there was no
the
trademark move.
The boys, So he goes, "Oh, I do this one," and when he scores, and he does this, and all the.
Yeah.
And I go, and I'm laughing at him, like it's funny. He's 15.
Yeah.
It's his draft year, but anyways, he's telling me about the celly. But if you think about that, like how many kids actually put that much time into what their selly's going to
Yeah,
be.
I
So it's
know.
a distraction, right?
Well, it's the maybe
So,
what we could probably touch on this topic again later, the being a beauty thing,
mhm.
because that was we talked about that a while ago now. It might be good to revisit that at some point because it's just you can just get caught up in the stupid things that don't matter, and then you forget about the things that matter,
Yeah.
and you put your time in the wrong thing. So
Yeah.
that's a good
Anyways, I digress.
yeah, that's a good start off. So on that note, with your group that you were just talking about, look at that how that transitioned. So last night, you went to watch the game in London, so I did your
Yeah.
skill session for you last night with the guys.
Yeah.
Good group of kids, good players,
Yeah.
all in their draft year, and I noticed I can communicate well, but my skills are no longer where they were
Yeah.
because I don't go on the ice very much.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I'm trying to do the demos to show them what to do, and it's just not as clean as I want it to be
Yeah.
when I'm showing them. And I'm still better than all of them, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But I can feel that it's not where it should be for them to really take the drill seriously, maybe. Right?
Okay, maybe, yeah.
So my question, I was thinking of this just on my way home last night, is I feel like I kind of know what your answer is already, but I think it's a good discussion, is how important is it that you can do the things you're teaching when you're teaching them? So it could be teaching anything. Doesn't matter what it's a hockey thing or whatever. So I was just kind of thinking that to myself when I was driving home last night. I was like, man, because I was just kind of like, I can feel it's going away,
Yeah.
and it would.
Yeah.
I'm still at the age where if I went and was on the ice a lot more, it would come back and
No,
it'd be
for
fine.
sure. Yeah.
But the fact that I'm not, and then I go out and try to teach because you're mostly the one that does that, so
Yeah.
I'm just out here and there, and I can feel it going away, and I'm like, man, I don't know if they're gonna buy in as much because I'm not as good as I should be, or I'm not so much better than them that
They're not sitting there go, okay, wow, I want to do that.
exactly, right? It's like, yeah, like he's a little better, but like he's like way older, like he should be better than that. It could be that attitude. I don't really know what they think. I'm just like thinking in my
Yeah.
head about it. But I was thinking of that on the way home. So just that's the question.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Loaded question.
Loaded
Yeah.
question.
I didn't think it was going to be loaded.
Yeah.
Loaded question. Is it important that you are able to do what you're teaching? I think it is. I do. I think it is. Or recognizable that you, like, there's a resume or something up there that says that you did.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like if I was doing this out of the blue, like with my skill level now, and went on the ice with kids and said, "Here's what we're gonna do," I wouldn't probably, in certain areas I would, but I wouldn't wow anybody anymore, right?
Mm.
I would say I don't, but that's about my own.
Yeah,
thinking.
that's your thought.
I would
Yeah,
say
yeah.
my stick handling, yes. Some of my shooting, yes. My skating, not so much anymore, unless I do like it's not in real fast motion.
Yeah.
You know, if I could do agility stuff, I'm still pretty good with
Yeah.
that. So if they could see that, okay, this guy's got it, and they like, because I think it's like, for me, the teaching piece, knowing what you're like, being able to do what you're teaching is it's big, because sometimes you could teach things, and if they don't see it in live, they don't see it in action, and then look at the teacher and say, oh, because you know what you're doing, then it becomes less believable, or less intriguing, or less, I'm trying to think of the right word.
Yeah, you don't get the buy-in the same
don't
way.
get the same
it
buy-in.
brings another layer.
Yeah.
If you can do what you're saying and you can really show what's going on and what they need to be doing.
Yeah. So if you look at someone and he's wearing jeans on the ice, and I mean, that's extreme, but if you're looking at an instructor that looks like, well, I don't know if he's older, and he's telling me what to do, but I don't think he ever did it. You lose a little bit of credibility.
Yeah.
So I guess that was the word before. If you can do something at a high level and teach it with words, I think you bring your credibility way, way, way up here.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if you can use examples, so wow, here we go.
Yeah.
So for example, if I show a kid, if you're coming off the weak side wall and you want to get to the middle of the ice for a shot, right? So how you're pulling it back, how you weight transfer, and what happens with the goalie, he has to go with that puck. So you've thrown it over that shoulder or that down low on that side, because he has to shift. He has no choice. And then as you do it fairly fast, or you do it with good speed, good smoothness, and a good shot and you did what you said you were going to do,
Mm-hmm.
now it becomes believable, and they go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
But if you can't do any of those steps in between, it becomes less believable.
Right.
So as a skill instructor, it's important. The flip side of that is it's not all about what the instructor can do.
Yeah.
What's important is what the instructor can teach the kids to do.
Yeah.
Right. So if you take the NHL level coaching, someone like what was his name? Mustache. Tom Watt didn't play in the NHL. What's his name? Hitchcock never played. Was never really a hockey. Scotty Bowman wasn't really a hockey player. So how do they get that message across? Well, they're very, very intelligent people that can explain things, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
But for the most part, players look at someone who hasn't played or can't do the thing, just like someone says, if you go to a gym and someone says, well, you should do this, this, and this, and they're 40 pounds overweight and they're eating a jelly donut, that person's probably losing credibility. Or they can't do the deadlift that they're showing, you lose credibility because show me, tell me, and I might hear you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you show me and tell me, then I'll actually understand.
Yeah.
Right. So so if you can do those details, and you lend a lot more credibility.
Yeah, for sure.
Is that the answer? Is that
Oh, I knew.
answer all
Yeah,
the points?
I kind of knew that's where you were gonna go with it, because my thinking on it was I could still, like, so for me personally, when I was doing the stuff last night, I could still do it all.
Yeah.
But it's not at the level I wanted it to be at.
Yeah.
So for them, it might have been believable or not. I don't really know what their perception was.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking of it in terms of being a teacher, being an instructor, or whatever.
Yeah.
But because the flip side of it is just whoever the coach is that's coaching Sidney Crosby, like, what are they telling him? It's like, you're not doing anything better than him, right? So it's
100%.
like, but he still has a coach. Tom Brady still has his coach, and so there's a place where you need that credibility.
Yeah.
And then there's other times where you don't necessarily have to be able to do it, but you need to be able to communicate it or something like that. You know what I mean?
So that's my point to having an instructor or a coach. Like, there should be a point where all your students are better than you, right? Or all your players are better than you.
That's why you're the teacher.
Yeah. Or else you'd still play.
Yeah.
So as a instructor, because I went through this phase not a phase, because I would always back it up with words. An instructor can fool people with, especially you get a kid that, whether they were a high level player or a real, well, there's guys out there that have the YouTube channels and stuff that never played at a real high level, and they go out and they do the skill stuff, and it looks like they're really good, but they couldn't play in a game if you asked them to. Yeah. They'd be horrible, or they just never could get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But they could get through that pylon and spin and throw it through the legs and all that stuff, and it looks amazing. But in a game, sometimes that doesn't even apply.
Yeah.
So what happens is people get sold on the optics of, oh wow, this guy's really good, he can teach me, but he may not be able to teach you a thing.
That's right.
It might be just do what I do, but how do you do that? Why you do that is not available in his vocabulary. So it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's where. So there's a lot of times where people say, could you demo, like even the pro guys, right? Can you just demo for us?
Yeah. And
I go, yeah, I'll do it. And then they laugh and they go, Jesus, right?
Oh yeah, dude, I remember it.
Yeah. So
I remember
the first time I kind of hit a rut, and Ekblad goes, Andy, after the session, he goes, I've never seen you fall before. So I just did.
Yeah,
but,
there it is.
But the thing it's not about the instructor, and it's not about the coach. The main thing about coaching and instructing is getting the message to the player.
Yeah.
And that communication piece is huge.
Right.
So, and a lot of times players have to humble themselves because, that was a really good point, what you said about Sidney Crosby. Like, what are you going to teach me? Mm-hmm. But having said that, that's, let's just change gears. What are you going to teach George St. Pierre in fighting? Well, when he goes in, when he fought, or the best fighters fight, is when they spar. If they were the best at everything, then they wouldn't need to spar. So what happens is they hire, let's say, the best boxing guy that can spar with to challenge them beyond what their limits are. Doesn't make them the best. Doesn't make George St. Pierre or that MMA fighter the best fighter necessarily, but the more rounded you can get in every discipline,
right,
the better you can be at every discipline. Yeah. It makes them a more well-rounded fighter. So they'll go to the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu teachers and grapple with them. Yeah. And they do that in every discipline to raise their game.
Yeah.
So It's not like they're the best at everything.
Yeah.
Or although they could be, they typically have someone better and coaches that are better.
Yeah, it's like across all things,
Yeah.
they're the best on
So
average.
yeah, so
But
you
it's
take
like,
a hockey player now,
yeah,
and you go, okay, well, what can you teach Sidney Crosby? Well, it might be wall work, might be the rims, it might be the face-offs. Like it's all the little nitty gritty
yeah, and
things.
faceoffs is a good one,
Yeah,
right? Like he struggled with that,
nitty
and
gritty
then
things, tips,
yeah,
different ideas, and maybe if Adam Oates was his coach, who was a great passer, he would be able to open up his eyes on different things.
yeah,
There's a lot of different levels of people, and I think that goes back to when uh, Wayne Gretzky coached, and I think there's a few guys like that, like Boom Boom Jeffrion was a coach for a while, didn't last a whole lot. Because you play doesn't make you a good coach,
hmm
and I'm not saying Gretzky wasn't a good coach, but like the 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 words are that he wasn't the greatest coach because and I don't know if this part's true, because he just expected people to understand what he understood. And that could be a thing, but it might be more of a fact that he couldn't really put it together, or maybe he just wasn't passionate about coaching.
yeah,
Wasn't
yeah,
for
for
him.
sure.
But anyways, that's a long answer to, I forget what the question was now.
No, that's a good answer though, because
Yeah.
I think this is gonna lead into like a bigger topic. Because I want to talk maybe in the next episode or in the next few, we'll do one about just how to being a good teacher, just in general.
Sure.
Because this is a good like
Sure.
question for that.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important. It's because there's not a. It goes back to last week we were talking about people how they comment on stuff and they just want to throw a blanket answer or a blanket
Yeah.
statement, or they have a one perspective on all situations, and that's not what it is. And when you're teaching, I was talking to a dad yesterday he was sitting in here. One of his kids, they come and work out with me, and he was just saying like he's confident that we know what we're doing with the kids because we know how to read the game.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the examples I gave him was when I'm training, especially a group of young kids, because this is a group of young kids, I was like, you have to keep it fun. You have to make it. So one of my strategies, I just answered one of the podcasts, a listener question about it too. They wrote in and they were asking about, they have a team of 8-year-olds, and he's like, I want to try to teach them hockey stuff, but they're 8. So it's like, how much can you do?
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, well, you can't really do too much because there's only so much they can pay attention to. But one thing that I'll do with young groups is we'll play some kind of game where there's like a lesson buried in there somewhere. Yeah. So I'll let them play for 5, 6, 7 minutes. Then I'll stop the game and I make them tell me what the game is for. Then once they figure out what the game is for, then they go play again, now knowing what the game is for, and we see what happens. And that's one way for that group. But if that age group, that it can be effective to train them, right? Using games like that with a young group. But some parents or some teachers or coaches or trainers that don't understand how to read the game might come in and say, well, what am I paying for them to come play games?
Exactly.
Right? And so this is where the conversation comes in about how to be a good teacher. Is you have to be able to read the game and what's appropriate, how much to communicate, how much to not. Like if you're trying to give the kids a life lesson and they're checking out, not paying attention, that's not an effective way to teach them.
Yeah.
Whereas you could give that exact same motivational speech to a group of 16-year-olds and it really hits.
Yeah.
You know? So, and that's part of the teaching game, is like trying to balance that out. So I feel like that's a good thing we could talk about.
Yeah, I like that.
We could do it full. I mean, we could talk about that for forever. So
yeah,
that was my opening thing. You got anything else before you want to go into that topic thing? I feel like you had something else to say.
So we're going to talk about. You asked me to talk about shooting today.
I did. I asked you. I made you
shooting and stuff. But ironically enough, to be quite frank, ironically enough, I just went and got coffees for you.
Uh-huh.
Just found out that Alexander Ovechkin last night, he had 2 goals, right? And he just set the record for I think it's 402 road goals on the road.
Oh wow!
So he's 1 ahead of Gretzky.
Wow.
On road goals. Funny thing about it, though, he did it in 90 less games.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Incredible, eh?
That is crazy.
And so I think he's like 100 off of Gretzky now. So that's wow. I think he's in 90 or 99 or 100.
I think he could pass him, man. I think.
Well, if he's just got to play for a few years and just stay on his clip.
And I don't see, like, there's no sign of him, especially with the way he scores.
Yeah.
Because this is what a transition into shooting.
Well, that's why I heard that. So I'm going to write that down. And it's like, my question is, I know, like, I actually don't know the answer, but my question is how often has he practiced shooting? But not importantly, but how many times has he taken that one-time pass on the power play top of the circles?
Yeah.
How many times do you practice that?
Yeah.
Like, that's the question. Like,
Seriously.
how many times has this guy taken that? Because it doesn't matter if that pass comes from cross seam. So if someone doesn't know what that is, like straight across the ice from
Yeah.
dot to dot or top of the circle, or from a defenseman on an angle, from down low, like across ice down low, he puts the puck in the net.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
absolutely ridiculous.
So
It's like,
he's
wow,
got 793. Gretzky's got 894. So he's 101.
101.
That's for him. That's 3 seasons, right?
It's on the pace he's going. It's 2 to 3 seasons.
And like,
So that's
especially,
3
so
seasons.
what I was gonna say is because of how he scores his goals, that is like he could not be able to skate and still score those goals.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like he could just camp out and rip one.
Pretty
like
much.
it doesn't like he doesn't. It's not a very act. So even if there comes a point where he's not fast enough to play big 5-on-5 minutes, like you can throw him on the power play still, and he could just crank one tees. Like there's no real reason that should go away.
Yeah.
So that's my thinking of why
Yeah.
I think he's gonna pass him.
It's incredible.
But what a shooter, man! What a freaking shooter!
Incredible.
Can just put it where he wants it, man. It's crazy.
It's like Stamkos has that too.
Yeah.
Stamkos seems, I could be wrong, but it just seems when he takes that shot from there, it's bar down or
Yeah.
just under the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Ovechkin does that a lot, but he gets them through the goalie, down low, short side. He just buries the puck.
You know what's just a side note before you keep going is with guys like that, because you see interviews with players like the top guys that have played, and the questions are always like, "What's your story? Like, where'd you play? Where you grew up, and all this stuff." But I would love to get them to interview these guys and like get into the nitty gritty about like how can you shoot like that? Like, what was it? Like, where did you figure out like this is how I should shoot?
Yeah.
And like, how did you practice it? Did you practice it, or did you just have a bomb like always?
So I
You know?
know, I think it was Dalton or someone else that played with me, or that I trained, that played in Sarnia with Stamkos.
Mm-hmm.
He did it every day.
Yeah.
After practice, he'd get on that dot or top of the circle and just take one timers.
Yeah.
So it's not. There's definitely not an. It's not an accident.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were a hockey player, and we eliminated shooting, we said skating. If you wanted to start your kid off in skating, you wouldn't go to an instructor and say, "Can you teach my son or daughter how to skate?" What you do is you go to a patch of ice, whether that's a public skating thing or a stick and what do they call parrots and tots or whatever, and you try. That's how you start skating.
Yeah, they hold
a
the chair,
backyard
they
rink,
putt
whatever it
around,
is,
yeah.
right? And it's so funny because that seems obvious, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a certain point where the kid could become teachable when they, or you can do drills where it's skating. But it seems anyways, and I could be maybe just my miserable old man, but it just seems that people are in such a rush for their younger kids to have a better shot. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%.
Like it's almost like, okay, they need a better shot. And it's like, so I said, when we talk about shooting, the first thing that you have to do is you have to put yourself you got to build a foundation. You have to build that foundation. And I don't think it's necessary or even intelligent to ask for a lesson until you've shot. I don't even know what the number of pucks are.
Yep.
But you'll notice that there's a point where you're starting to shoot the puck hard.
Okay,
go ahead.
Let me do a pushback.
Yeah.
Which I don't even agree with my pushback, but
Yeah.
this is just what someone could
Yeah,
think.
sure, no problem.
Well, what if they are building the foundation wrong?
That's fine.
Well, yeah, but if I'm a parent and I say, okay, like, yeah, I want my kid to work on his shot, but if I can get an instructor to like show them a couple things so that they're practicing the right way,
Yep.
Wouldn't that be better?
Yeah, no.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Just
yeah.
go into that.
So the problem with that would be you're putting the technique before, like it'd be like, I always go back to this. Okay, it'd be like telling a baby, because everything's a new language. When you're learning a physical skill, it's like learning a new language. So if I'm teaching you Spanish, which I can't,
Yeah.
if I started off with a joke, right? I told you a joke in Spanish and you looked at me like funny. It's like, it's not fair to you. You don't even understand the word.
Right.
You have to do the very, very, very basics thing. And
Right.
that's reading and whatever language is,
Yes.
right? So when you teach athletic movements and the technique, and I don't care if it's shooting, skating, weightlifting, throwing a ball, because you can use the same thing for throwing a ball or hitting a ball.
Yep.
You don't have to teach. You have to take some swings. You have to throw it a whole bunch of times before there's
Something to
any
work with. Yeah.
neural pattern whatsoever.
Yeah.
So your language, you can't. It's not fair. You're teaching them a full language before that you taught them how to say hello.
Right.
Or that, because I've got a granddaughter now. Can't believe it, but I love her to death. And without teaching her, right? It's because this is life. Without teaching her, she's turned 1 last week or 2 weeks ago. No one taught her, like banana. And she goes, they learn, they pick it up. So with any sport, you have to do the sport, do the thing before you get you need instruction.
Yeah, and it is particularly. You're right. It is particularly with shooting, because even skating, like skating can get more complicated too, but even skating, people know, like you said, go to public skating. And I tell people that all the time, like the kids that have never skated or are just starting to skate, the parents want to come put them on the treadmill, like skating treadmill. I'm like, that is not, they don't need to be here, and you don't need to pay for it.
That's right.
It's like, take them to public skating and let them figure it out.
Yeah.
And then once they have something to work with, then we can work with it.
Yeah.
Stick handling's the same thing.
Yeah.
People don't come in here and say, hey, I really need my kid to work on his stick handling with you. Do you guys do private stick handling lessons? Because they know, go home and stick handle.
Yeah.
Right? Stick handle around cones in the driveway.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Shooting's the exact same, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, I always, I'm probably beating a dead horse here, and I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But it's just like, you have to really look at it like the skill building, because it needs to make sense to you. It's like if you say you want to start, being a sprinter, want to run fast. What would be the first thing you would try to do? Run faster.
Run faster. Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't do it 5 times and go, geez, I'm not faster yet. Or do it for a week and say, I'm not faster. I need to get a coach to make me faster. It's like you haven't turned on those units yet.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to do that first. And then when you see a base and you see certain things, then you can ask things, because what a coach will do, if it was actual teaching, they'd put you in situations where you didn't understand.
Right.
Like, my body doesn't do this. I don't understand what you're saying.
Right.
Right. So if you take someone that hasn't shot pucks, go back to shooting, is they haven't shot thousands of pucks.
Yeah.
I'm talking thousands.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you need a lesson until you get thousands and thousands, because what you're going to find is that's the foundation, is getting the reps done.
Yeah.
Because 500 is not a lot, and 1,000 is not a lot. Neither is 3,000, but it's some. And some will give you, like, because your body figures it out, right? Like I say this with babies, the first time they eat, they grab the food like in the most awkward. Look, my granddaughter, I say bye to her, if she doesn't go like this, she goes like this, backwards. So, like, am I gonna say no, turn it?
Yeah.
And wave. No, and don't make a fist.
Yeah.
What are you, an idiot?
Yeah.
Like, you're frustrating me, man.
Yeah.
And maybe go sideways. Like, don't be like, it's not the way you wave, kid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So but it's I know it's funny, but that's exactly what it is when you do something athletic, is you're taking them, and it's like, there has to be a progression.
Yeah.
So too soon is just confusing and frustrating. And then it's actually, now they're thinking too much instead of doing the thing. So the foundation of getting your mind muscle connection in a circuit that can do a thing to a certain degree, thousands of times, then you can start tweaking it.
Yep.
I know that someone that has an interest in having a good shot or an interest in hockey is going to naturally go shoot pucks, because it's going to make them better, or they do it for fun. Out of the fun training, if you want to call it training, out of shooting the pucks, you go in your own head and you become Alexander Ovechkin, or you become this guy. Do you remember shooting pucks?
Oh yeah.
You were scoring goals for real.
Yeah.
So you're in your own head, and that's what people forget a lot of the times, is that's a real important creative part, right? And you're doing this thing, so it makes it fun. So making it fun will keep you out there longer. So that's without someone teaching you.
Yeah.
Now, people that care, like have fun and care, once they start shooting pucks, what happens is, because I remember this as a kid, we shooting pucks because I loved hockey, and then I'd have a great shot, and oh wow, like, it was exciting. I'm talking a little guy, and I wanted to do that over and over again. So your curious mind asks questions. How did I do that? Like, it's kind of natural. You're asking, how did I do that? And then you try it again. So by default, by shooting a ton of pucks, you're going to get stronger. You're going to get better mechanics, because you will. It doesn't mean it's perfect, but you built that foundation. But the curiosity is going to make you dig deeper for questions. And Oh, because if you'd never had a stick in your hands before, what end of the stick should you actually shoot from?
Yeah.
The heel, the middle, the toe, right?
Yeah.
So you start figuring little things like that out by osmosis, or I don't know if osmosis, but you start learning it. So after 100, you don't do that. You might get a little curious. After 1,000, it's like there's a rhythm, and after you do a whole bunch of them because you love it and stuff, like then you have a foundation.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
this goes back to that the play-based thing
Yeah.
that I was talking. This is why it's like documented. One of the best ways to teach young kids is through play. Like they have to play a game or do some kind of game because that is what is interesting to them. Playing is interesting, and then from that grows the desire to learn specific things
Yeah.
now if they're actually interested.
Right.
But you can't force them to want to be taught because they don't even know what this is for. So if I get a 9-year-old in here for a shooting lesson, it's like they just want to play the game, man.
So it's
Like,
funny you said 9 years old because I'm sitting here and I'm trying to picture what people that are actually listeners. What are they picturing? Like, okay, well, what is young? Is it like when you're 4 to 5?
yeah, right.
Is it when you're 6 to 7?
Mhm.
Is it like how long is that period? And I would honestly say that period of learning or building that foundation is a very, very, very long time. Like
Yeah.
very long.
Mhm.
Like I'm talking if you started hockey at 4, 3, 4, 5 or 5, 6, 7, I'm talking 12,
I
13
was gonna
years
say
old.
12. Yeah,
12,
12.
13 years old before you actually need a lesson or don't need it. I never had one.
Yeah, or could be useful.
It could be
Yep.
useful where you can tweak things where then that could apply in a game.
Yep.
Okay. So that's your foundation. Reps, reps, reps. Thousands and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe I don't know, whatever, a lot. And by doing that, you're going to get a better shot, period. It won't be a pro shot because then all the tweaking has to take place. You got to figure shit out. But, and then focus on, so in your basics, you focus on reps and then nothing fancy. Wrist shots, whatever a wrist shot is. There's different people call a wrist shot different things. So I'm going to call it a wrist shot,
Yep.
whatever. Wrist shot, slap shot, snapshot, backhand. That's a lot of shooting because there's 4 different shots, but it's all whatever. That's a lot. That's why it takes years and years and years to get a good shot as a kid,
And this
as a
is
youth player.
one of the most common questions I get too is about improving my shot because everyone wants to be the guy that scores, right? And if
Yeah.
you have a wicked shot, you're gonna score all these goals.
Yeah.
So I'll get kids that are in that age from 10 to 15 ask me, and maybe even older. I don't really know all the ages, but asking how do I improve my shot? Like there's a secret.
There's no secret.
There's no secret. It's like,
Yeah.
what do you think I'm gonna say to you? You know? It's like there's no secret routine. There's no trainer. Yeah, you have to come to my shooting camp. It's like no, just shoot the puck, man. Just shoot. This is one just maybe for something practical that I used to do for people that don't know or parents their kids are want to shoot pucks and they don't have any drills to do whatever. I used to take whether it was in the rapid shot when we had it here or I used to do it at home. I used to take listen to how nuts this is. So I used to take from the time I was a kid, I would shoot in my driveway. So I would shoot pucks at the net at the end of my driveway. As I started to get older, I could sail them over the net. And then it was starting to get dangerous where I could hit like the neighbors' cars. So I put the net against the house and I would shoot it at my garage doors with the net there. So the backstop was like the garage doors. Broke all the garage doors. Then it got to the point where like I could start to put it through the garage door or it would maybe break a window or whatever. Like I broke all the pot lights outside and all this stuff. So my dad brought me to the hardware store. We bought 2 sheets of uh like that finished wood and like 2 big like the
Not
size of the
plywood.
table. Kind of yeah, it was like a plywood.
Plywood, but like
It was part like particle board, more like that,
Yep.
but it had like a smooth finish
Yep.
on it. And we would put the net on the roof of the car, take the plywood to the park, and I would bring the sheets out on the baseball diamond and shoot against the backstop of the baseball diamond just to shoot pucks, man. And all I would do is I would focus. One of my drills that I would do is I would take a bucket of pucks, I would pick one corner, and I would shoot it as hard as I could every single shot at one corner. And I would take a couple seconds between shots so that I could shoot it as hard as I could on purpose, right? And I had a good shot. Like it wasn't the best shot ever, but I had a good shot. And I remember the year that I was doing that the most was probably my 17-year-old year when I was in junior, and I had 30 like around 30 goals the regular season, maybe 40 goals for the whole year. and it was to the point where it was like I could put it where I wanted. It's like I remember very vividly one game that I played. It came down, it was a 2-on-1. I didn't even once think about passing the puck because I knew I was going right by his ear, and I did. Boom, bar down. And I remember going back to the bench like, holy crap, like that was actually easy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that was easy to score.
That was a
goal.
huge process, though.
Yeah,
That was a lot of
huge
shooting.
process.
That was-
And my moral of that story is all I did was shoot pucks. I never came to you for a private lesson. I might have done like the odd shooting camp here or there, but I don't even think we did that. Like all the camps I remember I did.
Well,
he was
I
like,
would have at some point said, okay, maybe tweaked a shot when you
Yes.
were shooting, when you were doing.
but
at
it was
the
like
end of a
everything
drill.
was like general.
Yeah.
From what I remember, it was like a
Yeah.
lot of all skills. We did
Yeah.
some skating, we did some
Yeah.
stick handling, we did some shooting.
Yeah.
It was never just like I'm gonna pay Andy X number of dollars for X number of sessions to teach me how to shoot.
Yeah.
Ever. Never happened.
Yeah.
I shot a million pucks. You remember watch me in the
Yeah.
rapid shot?
Yeah,
I'd sit
you
here for hours.
abused it.
And it was like, that's all I did, man. That
Yeah.
was it. Just shoot the puck. And that was till I was in university.
Yeah.
Like I did that all the way through junior, through minor hockey.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It was nothing crazy. There's no secret, man. You know?
Yeah. Like you would laugh. I'll get back to this in a second, but
Yeah.
you would laugh as you're talking about that. So what my mother did, we had a little basement, like this,
Mhm.
little bigger. Well, we didn't live in a doghouse,
Yeah.
but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was a small basement,
Yeah.
and we had pucks. Not tons. We didn't have like 500 pucks. We had like probably
Same.
17,
I was the-
17 pucks.
I was the same.
Washer and dryer behind us, like
Yeah.
shit all over the place. And if someone said, "This is where you trained," really? Yeah. But my mom she took gold spray paint on the cement walls, and she drew a net relative to the size of a net, sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
And then she kind of filled in the targets, and she put Andy on the top, my net, and Daryl had one, and Ray J had one. But that wall
That's
that
awesome,
I shot
man.
on, like I would love to go back in that basement and look, because I remember vaguely how the walls were black
Oh yeah.
with puck marks, and then black on the end walls, and then black from hitting and then bouncing off the corner. So from, like as the wall out, these walls jutted out, the corners of those walls were black from just puck marks.
Yeah.
So no secret why I had a good shot.
Well,
We did.
and this is what I'm saying. It's like I don't know how many kids, like I don't know how kids practice at home anymore. Like I don't know what the protocols are. I know what I did. I hear stories about what you did, and
Yeah.
guys that were good at certain skills, they have a story like this where they broke something at their house because they were always shooting pucks or whatever. I still have a puck. There's a puck on the roof of my house that
Yeah.
we couldn't get. It's still there,
Yeah.
like by the skylight on my roof,
Funny.
because I hit the crossbar,
It's
it went up,
impossible.
and it landed in the snow on the roof,
Yeah.
and it still stayed there. It's still there. It's been there for 15 years,
Unreal.
right? And these are the kind of things, like driving the car over the curb at the park to the baseball
you can
diamond
shoot.
so I could shoot pucks, man. It's like it's not a secret recipe, man. It's just you.
Yeah.
And I did it because I wanted to.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. It's like no one told me. My dad.
Well, that's the biggest thing, though.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. You wanted to.
Yeah, and like my dad,
Yeah.
I remember when I started going to the park, my dad helped me.
Yeah.
Because he would come to like pass me pucks
Yeah.
to shoot and whatever.
Yeah.
But I would stay.
And did you take those moments when he was just passing a puck like they were the greatest moments in the world?
Oh,
For sure. My dad's showing interest.
the best, man.
Yeah.
The best. I was like, man, my dad actually cares. He used to the one
And if
one
he
summer.
said, "Wow, good shot," you were like, "Yeah, Dad." Like, you felt like the king, huh?
Like the
Yeah.
the one summer, I remember like he helped me a lot. This one summer in particular, and it ended up being it ended up being my best year. He would come with me to the park. He used to tie me. I would, as like a conditioning thing, I would skate around the track at the park, and he would like tie me like I'd be on my
Like
rollerblades
yeah.
to help me out, or I would have him rip pucks at me. He would do the shooting off the board, and like he had a decent enough shot where it was useful, but it was a little bit wild.
Yeah.
So it was like hard because I had to figure out how to tip pucks. Like one would zip by my head because he wasn't like the best shooter ever. So he did the best that he could, but
Yeah.
it was good for me because it was like all
Yeah.
over the place and I
Yeah.
had to figure it out. And those are some of the best moments I remember in terms of my training. Like it cost me $11 for the 2 sheets of plywood.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the
Amazing.
gas to drive to the
Yeah.
drive to the park, you know? And then after he stopped coming, I would go by myself. When I could drive now, I would put the thing on. I would drive myself, like to practice. Anyways, I know
That's awesome.
I'm beating that to death, but like,
No,
but
but
this is what you do,
it's
man.
actually important, because I think the missing link with a lot of training is that self-motivated person, right? That's
Yeah.
my phrase that I use all the time is, there's motivated parents and motivated players, but they usually don't live in the same house.
Mhm.
And a lot of times the parents are asking them to do more, and I think we should get you a lesson, all that stuff. And but the thing is the kid could probably the player could probably take care of a lot of it himself with just a big desire and interest in being better.
Yeah, for sure,
The
man.
love of the game. Like that's, I'm not comparing myself to anybody, but like I could just say this for sure that we didn't grow up with a lot of toys and a lot of things, like our actual toys, which I'm very thankful for. This is the one thing my parents did for me that I was always thankful for. The worst of times, the best of times, is that I was able to play hockey.
Yeah.
And that I was able to shoot pucks in my basement, and that we had always had a ball, we had pucks, and hockey was my thing. That was my toy.
Yeah,
so
for sure, man.
That's what I did. So obviously the microwave just came out, so obviously there wasn't cell phones and stuff,
Yeah.
right? So we were less distracted for sure.
Yeah.
And I can't say, I'd lie to you if I said like I would have done the same thing if I was born in today's age. I don't know.
Well, sorry, on that note though, it's like, because even for me, it's like I wasn't the kid either that was like all I ever did was hockey all the time. Like I wanted to play video games, I wanted to play other things, I did other sports, so it wasn't just, and a lot of that was there's other things going on. So like for me too, even me now, if it would have been me coming up when I had Fortnite to play all the time and a cell phone to look at and TikTok and whatever, then maybe I wouldn't have been as into it as I was even. You know what I mean? So good point.
So anyways, so as you're building your basics, this is some things if you're going to take teaching points from your basics. So not a 5-year-old probably, but I'm saying like as you start to get a little bit older, where you can understand. If you watch a game of hockey and look at how are their feet, like when guys shoot pucks, how are their feet? So what I notice is most kids when we do shooting practices or you see people teach shooting, most of the time is their feet are away from the net. So if we look at the clock, your feet are at, if you're a left-handed shot, your feet are looking at the 9 and your feet are looking at the 9s and you're shooting at the 12. So that's awkward balance. You don't actually shoot like that in a game. So if you're right-handed, your feet are at the 3, shooting at the 12. So
or it's just another way of your feet are perpendicular.
Perpendicular,
right? They're pointing the opposite way of the net,
right?
Like a 90-degree away. So you're shooting like across your body at the net, right? That's so sideways set up.
Yeah. So most people train like that, and then I find like a lot of the times people resist when I try to change that on them. It's like, well, but if you watch a hockey game and if you shoot a puck in a net, you're not going to the goalie and turning your feet, shooting across your body. You're looking at them, and your shots aren't practiced across your body. They're practiced with your hands in front of you, and you might turn your hips and stuff.
Yeah,
and
your toes are at the net, though.
But your toes are to the net. So that's the first thing is start getting used to shooting toes at the net, looking at the net, looking at your target. So that's a teaching point. What age is that? Maybe 8, 9, 10, something like that. Like you can start focusing on that.
Would you put like a maybe a benchmark, like when they're strong enough to actually start? I don't want to say raising the puck because some kids can like flip it and stuff, but when they are strong enough where they can actually raise a wrist shot, is that kind of like a good level where it's like, okay, now we can start to do some teaching stuff? Like if they're shooting ground,
like I don't know, I don't know if I can give it an age though.
Okay,
because like that's going to change.
It's not, but it's not an age. It's a point in time where you can see they're strong enough where they can actually start slinging the puck a little bit.
Yeah, you can start giving pointers.
Yeah,
like try this, do this. Hands are too far out. Bring your hands in a little bit and push down. Like stuff like that. Eyes up and stuff.
Right.
So I would say so that feet to the net. Learn how to do that. And the first thing is don't worry about like hit the net as best you can, but number one, shoot for power. Like try to generate as much power as you can every shot. So power and your accuracy goal would be hitting the net. Okay, especially when you're young, and especially if you're shooting a lot of pucks, the accuracy will come, and then I'll talk about dialing that in later. But the goal is to shoot as hard as you can, and because when you're young, like a lot of those goals, you're just overpower goalies anyways, and that's okay. They don't have to go in that area, right? So, and the goal is just to have a good foundational base, because you can once you learn how to bake a chocolate cake, then you can make a chocolate strawberry cake, and then you can add sprinkles. You can do all the other stuff, right? You can make it fancy. So it's just baking the cake first, get the basics. There it is. And as you're older, like as you get good, then like once your foundation's kind of set, then you can start looking at having a quicker release and dialing in the accuracy. But at first, it's reps, it's power, and I'd say toes to the net. That's and your accuracy is the goal is just hitting the net, and that's really important.
Yep.
It might not sound like a big thing, but it's important because what could also happen, right? And I'm not a scientist with this. I'm just going from experience. So if I'm actually scientifically wrong, and maybe I need to be corrected, but I don't think I am. Is that if you start your shooting and you only want to hit the top corner, then you're going to do a lot of misses, right? Like obviously. So
Yeah.
just make it bigger and whatever. It's kind of like professional basketball players. A lot of the times, the guys that do the shooting, they're right under the basket at first, and then they start backing it up, making it more difficult. So
Yeah.
just widen your focus.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So look at after you develop power, there's a certain point where then you're looking at developing your speed and quickness. And that's a different ball game when it comes to shooting. So what happens now is you're learning that okay, I can shoot the puck well and hard. Now how do I get it off quicker?
Right.
Because getting a powerful shot is good, but what typically if you're just shooting for power and you got certain ways of shooting, you're telegraphing your shots and it's not coming off
The
quick.
big wind up.
Yeah,
thing.
so
Yeah.
you want to be able to tighten that up by shooting quick release, hiding it in your feet, which I mean your feet moving, not over stick handling, not pulling the puck, your hands in the puck by your heels. So everything's kind of more done in front of you. So now you're working on a kind of a different types of shots. So, but that takes time. So if you actually look at people shooting pucks, like guys that shoot pucks hard, it's not coming from here. So like even in I guess the later in the basics, learning that all your release points, your hands are going to be in front of you. There's a sweet spot where the puck basically always is shot from, no matter how you shoot. So like if I catch those, this is a visual. So the people that are listening on without the visual, it might be harder. But if I catch a pass, or if I have the puck way outside my body here on my forehand side, a lot of people try to shoot from there, but that's no good. You have to have a weight transfer that drives that puck back into your front foot so that you can turn your hips properly or release off your inside foot.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do that, then you're losing balance and power.
Yep.
Right, so you can never get a hard shot, and then you're also losing the flex of the stick. So that's why it's important that your hands are in front of you for 99% of your shooting. So out in here. The quickness that will come at the next point. So that means like maybe you're taking 2-touch passes, right? Like quick passes, or you're stick handling the puck and learning to come off your inside foot, or even turning your hips to create more quickness. That would be the next phase, and that's where you could start getting into some lessons.
Yeah.
Like if you're at the point where you just have a powerful shot, and you need to start, or you think that you need to have some lessons, then it's a point where I can actually take you and start teaching you.
Yeah.
Or a real shooting coach could, to make you better. So then you're looking at in the quickness aspect of it is you're looking at how do I get a quicker release? How do I hide the puck in my skates and create deception, and adding fakes and stuff like that. So that would be the next phase.
Okay, I have several questions.
Okay.
Do you want to not break the flow here? I'll ask you at the end.
Give me a second. 1 second.
Okay.
I'm gonna just go back to a couple tips on here on the shooting too. Okay, so this will help in the quickness phase too.
Yep.
Learn how to strengthen your forearms. Use rice buckets. Use weights. Like get those forearms nice and strong so that they're nice and strong, so that you can because that makes a huge difference. Good strong forearms in a core, but the forearms. When you're shooting, make sure that you go through all phases, like your load up phase, which could be really quick, but you're loading up. And when you're actually making the motion of the shot, the faster that you can drive that through, like it's not all about its power, but the faster that your body torques or your hands come in front of you and follow through equals a harder shot.
Yep.
Okay, so that there's a real quickness and speed to the shot. It's like if I could take a pitcher throwing a ball, there's a wind up, but when that comes over his shoulder,
There's a snap to it. Yeah.
then everything in his body goes as fast as it can. You torque from the hips all the way through, you torque through. So it's the same with the shot. When you're bringing it in and load it up, like that might take a little bit, but when it's time to shoot and you're loading, press down that stick, that happens quick with a really good follow through. Find that sweet spot. That's why it's really important to shoot a ton of pucks. Will create downward pressure, first of all. No, find your sweet spot. So that spot where you know where you just know where it is. It's like if you pass 1,000 pucks, there's a sweet spot.
Yep.
So then the downward pressure is what's going to create on your stick is what's going to create like the harder shot and the slingshot effect. Follow through. So I use that example with kids is when if I was to punch you in the head and I just go to your nose like just like that and kind of just graze it, that's not following through. It's when everything turns and goes through your head. That's where it's the same thing as shooting.
Yep.
Right. And that's it.
Okay. So there's a lot there. So I'm a couple questions and I'm gonna tighten it up a little bit. So first thing, following that progression. So let's backtrack a little bit and let's say you're a little bit younger and I'm like 10 years old and I have just figured out how to really get a good shot off, raise the puck. I can go top corners now when I'm like around 10, because that's normally when kids kind of start to figure it out. But typically what they do is that big wind up shot. So they're not strong enough yet to start to do it properly necessarily, where they can shoot it quick from in tight because they don't have the strength. So is that something that you should be correcting or trying to correct when they're that age? Or is it kind of like let them just keep shooting until they figure it out?
Let them keep shooting, but if they're actually, so one of the things that they can do to understand is like start learning how to shoot off of your front leg. Or so if I'm a left-hand shot, left leg, right? So if you look, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, because something you will often say is passing is a lot
Very
like shooting.
similar.
So for kids that aren't strong enough, learning to pass properly could be the foundation to learning how to shoot properly, where you're coming off that inside foot, right?
It is a foundation.
Because you're not, when you pass a puck, you're not doing the big wind-up pass, and maybe some coaches don't even know that, but
most don't. That's the thing. This is very true. Most youth coaches don't. Like, and I would say that the other people at higher levels don't really know how to explain that or why is it happening like this. It's the same thing. If you pass a puck and you bring it outside your hips, you got your body at the weakest point.
Yeah.
You can't bend the stick properly. You're telegraphing what you're doing. And the accuracy every time you go a little bit farther out becomes less.
Yeah.
So there's that sweet spot. So if you did stationary passing, I'm a left-hand shot. If I was just stationary passing off my left leg, like where the pressure goes, did that 1,000 times or 100 times, that's your sweet spot.
Well, and here's maybe an example that everyone can kind of relate to. So if you're lifting weights or whatever, something where you're handling resistance, the further away the weight is from you, the more difficult it is to hold the same weight. So if I hold a 5-pound weight out to my side, that's a lot heavier than if I hold it right up to my chest, right? So you're a lot stronger in tight. So that's a good kind of analogy.
And
everything's you're right on top of your center of gravity, so everything's strongest there. So when you're going to shoot, you're going to pass, it should be coming into your body where you're in that strongest position, right? So back to what I'm saying. So for the kid, let's say that's 10 and he's not shooting properly, you could start with maybe that teaching him to pass properly, where he doesn't need the same level of power as a shot, but he can start to learn his hands are in front and keeping the puck in the sweet spot where he's strongest in the middle. But you still think like just let the kid shoot to figure it out, but you can start to give him some pointers of bringing it in properly.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. Like just teach them how that weight transfers. Like, see, this is why you can't teach it to real young kids. Because if you do it like the puck's out, let's say it's out wide here, well, there's more than just bring it to the middle. Bring it to the middle is like saying work hard. Bring it to the middle. Well, how? How do I bring the puck to the middle? Well, we'll bring it to the middle. Well, okay, so what happens is you got to pull with your top hand. You got to let go a little bit with your bottom hand. Yeah. At the same time, you're like, I'm a lefty, so I'm going. Weight is should be on my left. I should be bringing it to my right hand. Right, or to my right leg. So that's just a lot of shit right there.
Yeah, that they've never
physically
done.
And mentally to slap together.
Yeah.
That's why I always say that skills need to be blended. So that's why it's important to know how to skate and learn how to weight transfer skating. So that when you stick handle, you can stick handle and weight transfer when you stick handle, and then it comes into shooting,
right?
And then vice versa, like all the way through. So
okay, so then, and maybe just a little recap on the skills. So if I had to bring it down to just a couple key, because there's a lot to it,
there's so much.
a couple key things if you're trying to work on your shot. So the one that I always key in is that you need to bring it into that sweet spot. Like
Yeah.
you said, you're bringing it into your body to shoot, and you're shooting from in front.
Yeah.
So this goes back to what you said at the start, where your feet are kind of towards the net when you're making most of the time when
Yep.
you're taking your shots.
Yep.
And that puck's got to come into where you're strongest middle of your body. That's one.
Yep.
Then you were talking about that snap where it's coming from your hips, using your legs to help your shooting. It's not just your arms. That's another good teaching point. And then I already mentioned it, this having that's finding that sweet spot for you, where everyone's done this, where you practice it, and if you get you take a shot, you can tell when it comes off that it's not going to be a good shot.
Yep.
Before it gets to the net, before you even see where it goes, you can tell when you let it go, you're like, you know it's no good, right? So finding that. So those are kind of my three, if we bring it down to just a couple things, because there's too much stuff really. It'd be that, bring it into your body, finding the sweet spot, and then making sure that you're actually snapping through the hips. Those are kind of my three maybe. And then the next thing that you said was, as you're starting to get older, and I think this is really important because kids don't know this, and even kids that they can shoot well and they're starting to get older, like you said, is being able to learn different shots. Like you kind of brushed over that one quick, but that's actually important. Is people don't know that there's different kinds of shots.
I know,
right? So
actually, we did a shooting camp a couple weeks ago, and the one kid goes, "How come you teach just to shoot all these different ways?"
Yes, I remember the kid asking you. Right.
I said, "Really? What do you mean?
They don't know.
How do you shoot?" He goes, "I do this." I go, "You probably don't, because you don't really think about it as a player." I mean, I remember one guy that I trained that played for Dallas, and we were talking about passing, and I asked him a question. I goes, "What foot do you pass off of?" And he goes, so he was, let's say he was a lefty. It was my right foot. I go, "No, you don't." He goes, "Yes, I do." I go, "I know you don't." And he goes, "Guaranteed I do." I said, "Any amount of money you want to put on it right now," and we're joking.
Yeah.
So any amount of money, I will prove you wrong. So he goes, "Come on." I said, "Yeah, let's go." So we started passing pucks, and he goes, "Come on."
Yeah.
I go, "But this is a professional player making a lot of money."
They don't know.
He goes, "I didn't know that." I go, yeah. I said, "So people practice wrong."
Right. So this is the next evolution. So especially once you're into the 14, 15, 16, where you can really start shooting the puck hard, you have to be able to apply different shots now. You need to learn how to do it different ways. So it could be a shot where there's more of a weight transfer, turning your hips off your inside foot, off your outside foot. Depends on the situation, the half clappers, the tap and slaps, and all of that situational shooting needs to be taught around this time. So when you have your base, you're really starting to shoot it hard, you have to be able to see that there's more than one shot. And this goes to, you have to watch hockey, man. Like just watching hockey, just doing that is huge, because you get to see how guys pass the puck, how guys shoot the puck. So that's kind of my little summary of what you just said.
So everything you said, there's all these different kinds of shots and stuff, and that's 100% true. I know on our site, and then on a whole bunch of videos that we have, I've got shooting lessons on there. So like you can look there, but I think what I'm going to do maybe a reel or a TikTok or something this week, we'll spend a couple of minutes. I'll just show that.
That's
just go on the ice. We'll take 5 minutes. I'm not going to shoot a bunch of pucks, but I'll show you exactly what I mean.
That'd be great.
And maybe some of the things that I don't know how to shoot this. Oh, he does. So anyways, but not only is there different shots, like these are the little things that a lot of people would never think about. Because one of the kids was saying the other day about we're doing one-timers. He goes, they keep doing, they miss the net, they're knuckleballs, all these questions. It's like, so now you got to start thinking about where you're shooting from. So it's the sweet spot, but you also go your hand placement, right? So a lot of the kids, like, they try to power up and they're getting too low or they're too high. So not only hand placement, but what part of the blade are you shooting from? Are you shooting from the toe, shooting from the heel, shooting from the middle? That's actually a question. Yep. Which is better? So if I'm winding up or taking a wrist shot or a wrist or a snapshot from far out, most likely coming from my toe so I can get a slingshot effect, toe of my blade.
Yeah.
Okay, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
Because there's other types of shots you're going to maybe go from the middle of the blade and some from the heel. Like when I'm in tight, if I want to go get that puck flat straight up, I go more on the heel, and they go bar down almost every time.
Yep.
So like you got to actually understand your stick flex. So if you have a stick flex and you've shot, like some kids would know, because sometimes I changed my sticks, right? And I had a flex that was a mid, lower, higher. And every one of those, you actually have to adjust a little bit.
Yep.
So the stick I have now, what I was finding when I first had it, it would be like, what would you call it? Shank? Hook is, shank. If I was a golfer, shank a little bit, and they would go a little bit too high. So what I was used to is I had a mid flex previous to that. So I had my hand down a little bit more, And so on the previous stick, and I would nail that shot every time. I had this new stick and I was shooting. I go, what the hell? And I realized, oh, it's a higher flex. So I took my hands a little bit higher, put less effort, and then I corrected it. But without having any shooting repetitions and really asking questions, that you never know that.
Yeah.
You just think you're shooting shit or the stick sucks.
Yeah.
Or something's wrong with me.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's that. There's a toe. There's a blade. There's curve. All these different things that make a lot of difference. And so you have to in your hand placement. So a lot of times when you're shooting, you got to understand like your hands should never be in the same spot all the time. You're stick handling one way, you're shooting at another. And
that's a big issue, man.
Well, yeah, and you're depending. Like if you're pulling a puck in, your hands have to move. Like there's so much to it, but the foundation is the first thing that has to take place before you get to that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So then there's so much, dude, when it comes to shooting. So then you got to understand this is when you're actually getting to the point where you're 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 and up, right? Now when you're on the ice is a power shot means absolutely nothing to a certain degree. Now it's like as you get older, it's like, are your feet moving? Can you skate and get the puck off of your stick very quickly without telegraphing the shot? That's an art. So now that's stick handling in combination with shooting. But again, that stems from like you will be able to do that if you don't really stick handle outside of your sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
And people might say, well, that doesn't make any sense. It actually does. So what happens? You end up stick handling and skating into pucks instead of moving them, right?
Yep.
So, but it always has to go there. There's different types of shots. The other thing is deception. Is as you start getting better, is being able to look one way or fake and create deception in your shooting. Open the face of your blade, chicken wing, all these different things that you can do. That's another thing. And then, but now it's about creating a quick release. So as you get older, that's your next focus is after foundation and your really good foundation is quickening up that release. And then also being able to shoot pucks very quickly off the passes.
Mm-hmm.
2 touches, learning how to do a hard catch, learning how to sometimes cradle and release, catch and release really quickly. But it has to be done quickly. And you want to be able to do all these things quickly without a wind up and telegraphing what you're doing, just being ready to shoot without a wind up.
Yeah.
And that's like a whole other phase where teaching actually can become very important.
Yeah.
And then it's like a whole, like, you know, when I was teaching the kids shooting off their inside foot, right? The kids get impatient because they just don't see the power right away. But that's the reason is because you're starting at not 0, but you're starting, if you go to a level 10, you're starting at about 2, and then it takes a whole whack of reps and practice to get that.
Yeah.
So,
pause. This is another important thing for kids to understand. And if you're the coach or the trainer or the dad that's helping or whatever, is to point out that they're gonna be no good at it to start. You know,
they won't be good after 100.
Yeah, because a lot of kids they'll try something new and it doesn't work for them right away, so they go back to their old habits or whatever it is because they don't see the success right away. And being able to reinforce that it's a process, it's going to take some time for you to learn it, especially if it's a new shot or a new way of shooting or a new component to their shot that they haven't done before. They have to have some patience to be able to learn that. So any of those things that you just pointed out, whether it's with the hands or any of those other things you said, it's like those things are going to take time and it's going to make you no good at it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, this doesn't work. Like I can't shoot like this.
Right.
And so you don't have the pattern yet. You haven't done it yet. Your brain, it doesn't know how to do that movement fluidly to generate the power. But almost every single kid I've seen, if they stick with it, they have the aha moment at some point where all of a sudden, boom, they get one. It's like, oh,
that's it. That's
there
what
it is. Right. And so that's an important point to make is that it's going to be frustrating, especially when you're older and you think you can shoot. Like you get these kids that are in junior and they think they can shoot the puck and you try to tweak something or give them something new. And it's like, that's fine. But if you get in this situation in the game and you can't shoot this way, then you're not going to be able to get the shot off, you know? So that's an important point.
Well, so I was just, as you're thinking about this. So do you remember a few years ago, there was the one kid on the Spitfires that was coming here a couple times a week for shooting lessons and stick handling. And, he was so frustrated with the shooting. He was like, hey, he didn't have a great shot to start with, was just okay. And he really wanted to work on it. We worked and worked and worked, and he was getting very frustrated, but then it started clicking. But it took him 1 year, basically 1 year, to take his shot to get it to a junior level, because he only did it one way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all the things that I was saying that you can try to avoid is having a wind up, not hiding the puck, not having it in your sweet spot,
Yeah.
and not bending the stick the right way and all that kind of stuff. So that took a year.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
but having said all that, I want to just talk about the imperfect, practicing the imperfect way.
Oh, great. Can I tee it up or do you want to just go?
Yeah,
I
go
don't want
ahead.
to steal your
No, go ahead.
spotlight.
No, go.
But I
No, I
get
got zero pride in
but
life.
I get
No, I got zero pride. Guy,
Zero
no, in life I have zero pride anymore. I'm 53 and a half, and I'm just glad that I can sit at a table with a microphone.
So I love this because I hadn't heard. It's one of those things, you know that it's true, but you're the first person I've ever heard talk about this, and maybe there's someone else who does, I don't know, but
Right.
you're the first person I've heard really start harping on it. Is when you play hockey, things are not perfect. And the first time I heard you talking about it, I still remember, it was a while ago, like years ago, you were talking about how Zach Cassian is really good at picking up bad passes.
Yeah.
That was where it started from, where I started to notice you would teach this. And this guy you could throw a puck at him anywhere, and he just gets it up to his stick and can make a play now. And this is a guy that obviously he plays in the NHL. He's a really good player, but this is a skill where when things are shitty, he can still do something with it and be productive. So one thing that I really notice, particularly with shooting, like being able to catch bad passes and stuff, that's obviously a good skill, but particularly with shooting, if guys don't have the perfect setup, they don't want to shoot it. So and everyone has done this too in practice. Like maybe you're doing a 1T or a shooting drill. Somebody gives you a bad pass. What do? You give it back to them. I didn't like that one. Give me a better one, right? And that's not the game. And that doesn't mean you never practice the perfect situation, because if you're really trying to isolate and work on something specific with your shot, then yes, you need that perfect setup and to get it in that perfect spot and all that. But there should be a component of your practicing that is when things are messy and it's like a game where you're going in on the 2-on-1 and the guy gives you a pass and you have to really reach to get it, but you can still get to it. What do you do with that puck?
That's right.
So this is something that you're the only person I've ever seen in hockey, like online videos, whatever, where you really harp on this in the game. What's going to actually happen is you're going to get a pass when you're not ready, standing up, off balance, in a weird spot. It's not what you're used to, and you got to be able to do something with it.
Yep.
So that's an important thing to be able to know, right?
Yep.
So make sure that you're spending at least a component of your time doing this imperfect kind of stuff. So you can elaborate on that from here.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I get closer to the mic here. Take my.
Yeah.
That's the thing is that teaching the game it's all good when it's all perfect, right?
Right.
But that's the number one thing is that you could practice. You sit there, let's say you take your shooting, you practice and practice and practice. It's all good when you're sitting in your basement or you're out in the driveway and you're shooting pucks and it's hitting the net. It's all perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You got the puck exactly where you want. And this is good. This is your foundation. This is what I'm talking about. Your foundation is your foundation. But I'll give you an example. Last 2 examples real quick off the top of my mind. Last night, London versus Guelph. Danny Zolkin got a goal on the power play. It was the shittiest way to shoot a puck you could possibly think of.
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, you saw the goal. It was a power play, rebound, so he had to get down and he had to like redirect on a really bad angle, but because he has some reps and stuff like that. So that's how passes actually happen in most games. Most games you're not standing in front of the net and the rebound comes perfectly where you can rip a puck. It happens, but it's most likely not going to happen. Another one in the first period first period, grabbed a puck and he was coming out and had some pressure. So he made a cross ice pass. This is just neutral zone stuff here. Made a cross ice pass, and with all that pressure, it was kind of in his line mate's skates, and the line mate couldn't handle it. Should have though. Should have been able to handle it. Should be able to kick that up with either foot. So that's. I mean, should have. Higher percentage should have than he shouldn't have had that. Okay, so this is what I'm saying is that pass was a good pass. In general, it was a bad pass because it wasn't on his tape, but that's how passes come to you in a game. So if you sit there and you never practice taking a pass off your skates, you will never get that pass. So therefore, you cannot play at a higher level. So that's why in the summertime, I will spend 20 minutes like say on Tuesday, I'm going to go 20 minutes where we're going to do a drill where you're skating and everything is in your feet and you have to kick it up and put it in your feet again. You have to be able to react. Oh, so if you've done that 1,000 times in a game, that's going to happen. So now you can be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
So now when we take that to the shot, many times, most passes aren't good. So if yes, you're right. Like if you take, the game is mostly imperfect. So if you take a pass where you're skating and you have to reach and you're way out here, do you have to stop that puck, stick handle it, bring it to your sweet spot or all the way around? Well, that takes a second and a half or a second. You don't have that kind of time. So how about learning how to do a pull-in shot or a two-touch shot from way out? I teach that. So now a kid gets, if you've been there before, then you know, oh, okay, now I just catch that and I just step in on my inside leg and I'm going to have a really good shot here. Or I can pull it in, right? I can take it from far and pull it into my body, into my sweet spot, and it'll happen really fast. So that's practicing imperfect. It's practicing shots off a face-off. And it's not necessarily because it's a face-off. It's just because you have to react, and the goal is to get rid of it quick. Doesn't matter how. So now you're going to take an imperfect shot. But because you've practiced so many different ways of shooting, that shot, your body's kind of got the neuromuscular facilitation to take that to take that shot, no matter how it lands, right? Have you ever taken a whole bunch of passes off a knuckleball, right? Or inside your feet, inside your too far behind? All these different things are absolutely huge. So you learn how to just get it off by doing reps that are imperfect and off balance. If you get off balance, if you catch a pass and you're leaning backwards or something like that, can you still shoot a puck? You should be able to, right?
And the reason that actually matters is because if you can get 3-4 more shots a game, because you can take a bad pass and get a shot off quickly, you might get an extra 5-6 goals in a year because of that. And I was so anyways, talking about the face-off thing, one of the drills I worked on with the guys last night that I showed you, I just made it up because I was thinking about that part of how you teach and I wanted to apply some of that. So we did a face-off drill. So you had 2 guys taking the draw in the D zone or O zone, depending which side you're on, a guy behind each of them. And it didn't matter where the puck went off the draw. Wherever that puck goes, you had to get it to the guy at the top of the circle. The guy at the top of the circle had to get that shot off as fast as he can. Now, I went in the room after the session just to shoot the shit a little bit about it, because sometimes the kids still, even at that age, these are U16s, they need to be told where things are going to apply. So when I'm on them, because I was in their face about getting it off quick and some of them were just garbage shots, knuckleball, whatever, right? But I was saying to them tonight, so they play a game tonight. They're playing against London, the London Junior Knights, and they're the 3rd ranked team in Ontario. Okay, they got that one kid that's supposed to be a first overall pick, whatever. Really good team. Okay, so they're not going to have the time or the luxury of getting those pucks in perfect positions because these guys are going to be on them, man. So I told him, I was like, if you guys can just win an extra face-off, that was the one element because you care. That's an extra possession. If you can just get a shot off quick off a face-off before that goalie gets set, who knows, right? Who knows if you get one, you get a cheap one, you get a cheeky one because their goalie was sleeping. And when you're playing a good team like that, you need those breaks. You need to get a break like that sometimes, right? So I was harping on him about, you guys are good shooters. You guys can get the pucks off hard, especially some of their D. Some of their D get nice hard shots off. Even if it's not your hardest ever, just the fact that you're off a split second earlier, maybe you get an extra 2 goals against a top team in your league because you guys were just getting shots off quick, putting everything at the net whenever you could, But a lot of guys, they wait to get that perfect bar down Austin Matthews snapper where it's just the highlight reel shot. And it's that's not the game. The game's imperfect, you're saying,
That takes a lot of practice.
And so that's an application now. That's a direct application. So it's as the trainer or the coach or whoever, I'm saying, we're doing this drill. There's a lot of components. We're doing the face-off, we're doing the battle to get the puck and then getting to the guy quick. But this is where you can feel that it actually would matter in a game. You're playing London tomorrow. You're not going to have time to do shit. So
Yeah.
when you get an opportunity to get a shot off, get the shot off. Even if it's a trash shot, it doesn't matter. You get it to the net, who knows, right?
Yeah.
And that's how the game actually
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So
Yeah, and then my finishing piece
Yep.
would be learning. This is as you're more advanced, is learning to shoot for percentages.
yeah,
Like
yeah, good point. Yeah,
Yeah. So like, a lot of guys, you see it at every level. People want to pick those little corners and stuff, but a lot of times you go that short side corner stuff, and then you're back checking. It's like that's not intelligent, right? So like these are little things. Is like have your favorite location to shoot. So like when you're in a jam or when you are under pressure, I guess you could say, and you have no other options. Like, what is your option? What's your go-to shot?
Yeah.
Right. So like, I mean, location, as far as location goes, I was going to say location wise.
Yeah.
So that means is it the bottom of the net, top of the net, is it what corner, whatever, right? So go to your favorite shot when in doubt, if you can, so that you know that that's your old reliable. For me, it was blocker side, like about this high off the ice.
Yep.
I could nail that pretty much anytime I wanted to from almost anywhere. So that was my go-to.
Yeah.
That's whatever. Shooting a foot off the ice, right? Looking like if you're coming on off the wings and stuff for shooting a foot off the ice for the far pad for rebounds. That's a percentage now. It's not necessarily to score goals. You might score, but it's more to set teammates up for going to the net. So that's like an intelligent way of shooting pucks. It's not just shooting at the crest and I got a shot on net, because that's not actually intelligent, right? Shooting just behind the goalie's heel of his stick. Really tough for him to get that. So learn that art. His sliding pucks or shooting pucks just past his heel, because that's really tough.
Yeah.
You'll just be surprised how many goals you'll score there. And then another thing that you want to work on, I did that with Charlie quite a bit this summer, is we're shooting off of really bad angles. So let's say you're coming out of a corner. No one expects a shot there. And so bad angles for yourself and bad angles according to the ice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Like where you are on the ice, even if your body's off balance and stuff like that, learning how to get shots off of weird angles and bad angles those are just like not trick shots, but it's like when in doubt, get a shot, right? When in doubt, shoot. But you might as well be intelligent and have some practice with it.
And this is the hockey IQ thing, because this is an element of it where we got some guys in here like that are playing junior, and I'm thinking of the one guy in particular that who I'm thinking of. It's always like, I need to score a goal here, and I'm going to try to go cheese, even though we're on a power play, and if I miss, it's going to hit the glass and wrap out of the zone. So this is starting to think hockey now, where if you're coming in on a 2-on-1 and you have a straight shot or something and you want to try to pick a corner, like whatever, but there's a certain time to do a certain shot and there's a certain time to not, and being able to think that's where you start to see guys' IQ for the game. It's like, okay, I know my chances of scoring off a shot here are low, so instead I'm going to try to go far pad on purpose so that we get a muck in front of the net or something like that. And that's part of that thinking the game properly in terms of shooting. So it's important to be able to do that. So one more question. I just had a thought. Maybe this is nothing. So once you're in junior, at the junior level now, so guys are starting to work to try to play pro or whatever. Is there anything notable about differences between forwards and defensemen and how they're shooting, or what they should be focused on with their shooting? Is there anything there that is worth mentioning in terms of the shooting, or not really?
Both you want to be you want to get them off quick.
Yeah.
That would be the mentionable thing, is you want to be getting them off quick. Like D, it's the tricky part with D is when you get in the puck is not to overhandle it.
Yeah.
And then number 2 is to get it off quick and find that shooting lane, not hitting shin pads. So it's getting open enough to find a lane to get the puck through, but it has to come off quick.
Yeah.
And forward, same thing. It's as there becomes a certain level, probably junior and up, where goalies are actually really good, and they only get better. That's where your release and deception have to really plays a part.
Yep. Sweet.
Yeah.
I like this. That was a good episode. That was fun to talk about. Good. So I'm gonna have to chop some down because we're kind of long, but that's fine. Okay. If you guys have any follow up, please let us know.